Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for being here. Tuesday, April 22nd. That means the NFL draft only 2 days away. And Club Jaguar featuring UCF Jaguar, Jason from Jaguars United, and myself, we will be recording live at Bottlenose Brewing for the first round of the draft. Come out, hang out with us. There's going to be drink specials. Jason's giving away. First 20 people that get there are going to get a free beer on Jason. And then we are also going to have a mic set up for fans to come on and chat with us during the draft about what's going on. Jaguars obviously have the fifth pick, Again, that's Bottlenose Brewing. It's in Tinseltown. Come hang out with us. You can check socials if you want to get more information on that. So right now, we're talking about the Jaguars' top options in the first round. Obviously, the draft is much bigger than the first round. First round is the most important round, but you can hit on a lot of really important picks and players throughout the rest of the draft. And after the first round, just looking at day 2 of the draft, the Jaguars have 3 picks on day 2. They have 2 picks in the 4th round. All of those picks are very important. But as we get closer and closer to night 1, it's everyone trying to figure out what exactly is going down in the first round because it's so close. And then it's just kind of a whirlwind on day 2 with rounds 2 and 3. And then Saturday is absolutely crazy with kind of a marathon type day with day 3 of the draft, rounds 4 through 7. But right now we're kind of looking at that first round still. And the first round can help dictate what the rest of the draft looks like, not only for your team, but for the rest of the teams in the league. So it is a really fun thing to cover. I absolutely love the NFL draft. And right now, going to try to contextualize some of the Jaguars' top options and not just make it based necessarily on my opinion as much, but kind of what I think fans should understand about these prospects and these options for the Jaguars in this 2025 NFL draft in the first round. So we're going to dive into it. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. And if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy the work we do here, please consider liking and subscribing. Helps us out a ton. So top options in the first round. I think the top option is clearly trade down. This is a class where most people don't see very many blue chip prospects in this class outside of like Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I think those are the 2 consensus blue chip prospects. And again, after that, I just don't think many people have blue chip prospects. Now, got to turn the light on here. I think Ashton Genty is a blue chip prospect. I also think Mason Graham is a blue chip prospect. I've seen some comments about, Mason Graham not really having impressive production or anything like that. Look, interior defensive linemen in college, they generally don't rack up double-digit sacks. That's not kind of how it works. But as a 20-year-old in 2023, when he had a fully healthy season, this guy, every time I turned on the Michigan tape, he was the most impressive player. Every time I watched them in a game live or every time I turned on their defensive tape, I was like trying to watch different guys like Chris Jenkins or Will Johnson or whoever it may be, and Mason Graham just continues to pop, right? And then you look at the numbers in 2023, he had the 2nd highest pass rush win rate on true pass sets, which is really the best indicator of how well a player is producing as a pass rusher, behind Byron Murphy. He had the 2nd best pass rush win rate in 2023 when he was healthy as a 20-year-old. 26% pass rush win rate, again, behind only Byron Murphy. So, again, I just don't really see why everyone's getting so down on Mason Graham. I think he's a very good player. But getting back to this best options, trading down is the best option because there's not that much of a drop off at the premium positions from a value standpoint from probably 5 where the Jaguars are to the mid-teens. I just don't think there really is. I mean, if you're talking about Mason Graham, to me, he is far and away the best interior defensive lineman. But if you traded down to the teens, and you were able to acquire, an extra second round pick or something like that, which is huge value, then you could probably still take like Derek Harmon at the same position, Walter Nolan at the same position. Darius Alexander is really high on my board. He's not as high on everyone else's. But there's just so much value to be had in an early day 2 dart throw, and so much flexibility that would give you in this draft class. Like if you got an extra day 2 pick, you might not even be worried about trading up later in the draft for a player you love, right? There's just so many different reasons to me that trading down would be the best option. One of those reasons, however, is not because I don't think that there will be players valuable enough to take at 5 overall, because I think there will be. I just generally think trading down is the best thing to do in the draft because you're just getting more value. Now, if you're leaning into pure like best player available, based on my board, and I think based on a lot of people's boards, Ashton Genty probably will be the best player available at 5 overall. He's the second best player in the class, in my opinion, behind Travis Hunter. But running back is not a valuable position when it comes to contracts. And so a lot of teams and a lot of people kind of focus on, well, what is the best possible outcome of a pick and what is the worst possible outcome of a pick? Worst possible outcome is you miss and you're screwed. And whether you miss on a running back or a cornerback or whoever, it doesn't really matter what position it is if you miss, right? But if you hit, and Ashton Genty is as good as everybody expects him to be, what is the value of that as compared to if you hit on an edge player or a wide receiver or a cornerback or an interior defensive lineman? Because Ashton Genty will already be making top 15 money at the running back position. Whereas if you were to take a wide receiver at 5 overall, they'd be at like 40th on the pecking order in terms of wide receiver contracts. And if you're paying a wide receiver 40 money and getting top 15, top 20 wide receiver play out of that prospect, that player, you're getting a much better value. You're getting a much bigger advantage from a contractual and roster building standpoint. However, I do think that there's holes to poke in that argument a little bit, because I think you could sit here and say, look, if you get a top 3 running back in the league, top 5 running back in the league in Ashton Genty, and he's not only a great runner, he's a great pass catcher, he's a great pass protector. I think there's a lot more value in that than just talking about the contract part of the whole thing. I do, and I think Ashton Genty is the second best player in the class. So again, I think if you're leaning into pure best player available, Ashton Genty is the best option at 5 overall. If you're leaning into positional value plus best player available, I think it's probably Mason Graham, which is kind of where I fall. I would take Mason Graham in all likelihood because I think he's going to be a great interior defensive lineman. I think he's going to be a balanced interior defensive lineman. I think he's going to be a versatile interior defensive lineman who can actually line up at 5 tech for you and play the run that way and probably actually win as a pass rusher. He can line up anywhere from, I don't think you should really be playing him at nose tackle. So realistically, like 3 to 5. And be a maybe not completely dominant, but probably a guy who's a plus interior defensive lineman for the next 10 plus years with some opportunities to have Pro Bowls, all pro teams, all that good stuff, all the accolades, and pairing that with Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, and for this year, Eric Armstead and Devon Hamilton, and then you also have Mason Smith coming up. I think if you can make a strength a bigger strength and make a dominant unit, that is just so important. But again, I wouldn't argue against Ashton Genty either. It's just, if it was up to me, I'd probably take Mason Graham. I think that Mason Graham, when you consider positional value combined with best player available, That's where I think you get to the Mason Graham pick. If you're leaning into pure best player available, I think it's Ashton Genty. So that's kind of where I'm at with some of those two guys. We'll continue talking about the rest of the potential options. Again, recapping so far, we've talked about trade down, Ashton Genty, Mason Graham. I think trade down's the best option. I think if you're talking about pure BPA, it's Ashton Genty. If you're talking about BPA plus positional value combined, it's Mason Graham. And Mason Graham is my fourth ranked prospect. We're going to get into the rest of these options potentially that we're going to talk about. But first, I want to talk to y'all about Underdog Fantasy. You ever watch sports and find yourself wishing there was a way to get into the game? Now there is with Underdog Fantasy to play. Choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. Very simple, i.e. points, strikeouts, touchdowns, and more. Y'all already know. We talk about it all the time. I'm looking at my Magic, Palo, to go higher on points against the Celtics. Probably going to take Franz to go higher on points too. All you got to do is download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code DuvalDaily to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code DuvalDaily. Claim your special offer today. Get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 18 plus, 90 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 90 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona. Present at state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 home line on 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy. If you're supporting them, you're supporting us. So those are my top three options. Trade down, Genty, Graham, by a wide margin. They just are. Beyond that, I do still think there's some good options for the Jaguars. I do want to talk about the smoke about Ashton Genty, though, a little bit, real quick. There is so much smoke around Ashton Genty to the Jaguars right now. I mean, you can't look anywhere without seeing that. It has gone from Mason Graham being the consensus pick to the Jaguars to, I think, Ashton Genty being the consensus pick to the Jaguars. Now, what has made that happen? I would say different reports from some pretty well-known NFL reporters, a mock draft or two by influential NFL draft analysts like Dane Brugler, and all this momentum has shifted to Ashton Genty being the fifth pick to the Jaguars. But what has caused that to happen beyond these reports, or why did these reports happen? Why did these analysts go in this direction? Who does it benefit for the NFL and NFL media to believe that the Jaguars are going to take Ashton Genty with the fifth pick? Could benefit James Gladstone if he wants to trade down. You've got the Raiders highly connected to Ashton Genty. You've got the Bears highly connected to Ashton Genty. The Cowboys have been in that talk the entire draft process. If one of those teams covets Ashton Genty more than anything else, who does it benefit to potentially have the NFL world thinking that the Jaguars are going to take Ashton Genty? I think it benefits someone who wants to trade down. I think that's James Gladstone. That's my take on that. I think James Gladstone would love to trade down. I think he's smart to want to trade down. And I think that the Jaguars are trying to stir up some interest. That's my thoughts on that topic. We'll see if it works out for them and if I'm right about that one. So I do think Ted McMillan is a good option for the Jaguars for a few reasons. And when you look at my big board, he is not my wide receiver 1. He's my wide receiver 2 at 14 overall. I have Luther Burden a good bit higher. But it just doesn't seem like the NFL is there on Luther Burden. But the reason I think McMillan is a good option, there's also talk about like McMillan not being super dedicated to football because he doesn't like to watch film, yada, yada. That's not for me to decide. That's for the Jaguars. That's for these teams to decide. I think if the Jaguars believe in someone from a intangibles standpoint, intangibly rich, and they take him, then that's good enough for me. Just from an intangibles standpoint, but from an on-field standpoint, like what he brings, I don't know that he's going to be an elite wide receiver one, which is normally what you'd be drafting if you're taking a wide receiver with the 5th overall pick. But because the Jaguars have Brian Thomas Jr., who is their wide receiver one, I think McMillan will work out if the Jaguars take him because he doesn't have that pressure to be the wide receiver one. And I think he actually does complement what they do in a pretty big way. He's got some yak ability, for one, which is a big thing in the Liam Cohen offense in this ecosystem. He's also got good contested catch ability, a huge catch radius for Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence, he likes to put it up there and let his guys go win. I think that Tet McMillan has shown he can be a ball winner. I also think the thing that pops out to me most about his game, honestly, and I've been saying this since I first watched him, he comes back to the football. He always works his way back to the football to help his quarterback out in the biggest way. And that's just not something you see all the time at the NFL level. It's not something you've always seen from Jaguars receivers. And I think that alone would help Trevor Lawrence out a ton. Just his willingness to come back to the ball. He's a smooth athlete. He's not like an elite athlete at the position, but he's 6'5", 215 pounds. I mean, he's a monster out there. He's not Mike Evans. I hate everyone comparing him to Mike Evans. He's just not that. Mike Evans is huge. I'm talking about like mass on his frame. Mike Evans is just a different one-of-one type of guy. If you want to compare him to Drake London a little bit, I can see that one a little bit more. I don't think they're one-to-one, but that one's a little bit more in the realm of possibility or kind of more realistic. I like to Drake London a little bit more overall. But, McMillan, I think, is a good option, again, because I think you're drafting him to be the wide receiver to the running mate to Brian Thomas Jr., and now you have two potentially top, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is easily a top 10 receiver in the league right now, if not better. I think Tet McMillan in this system would probably come in and be a top 20 receiver in the league pretty quickly. So if you're talking about having that type of advantage every time you step on the field, that's pretty huge. It is. And again, this show is, I'm obviously giving some of my opinions, but I'm also just trying to frame this, contextualize like what you're getting potentially when you make these different picks. I love Tyler Warren at tight end. Tight end is not viewed as a super valuable position. And in fact, like might be the lowest paid position in football outside of like center, something like that. Maybe even lower than center. It's down there. Maybe safety. I think though safety is a little bit higher too. Yeah. Tight end's just not one of the most valuable positions in the NFL. However, I mean, Tyler Warren, what he brings to the position, he's my 6th overall player. I think he brings pretty much everything you could ask for. And I know you hear people saying he's not a great blocker. Look, he played quarterback in high school. He's growing as a blocker. And I think when you look down the stretch this past year, his best tape as a blocker is down the stretch. He is a dynamic offensive engine. And again, I think at his size, like about 260-pound guy, 6'6", crazy explosive at that size, crazy nimble at that size, elite hands this past year, both in contested catch and just, doesn't drop any of the easy ones. He is a freight train with the football in his hands. He's a yak monster. They used him as a quarterback, as a running back, as a fullback, H-back, tight end, wide receiver. He did it all. He was the Penn State offense this past year. And people talk about, well, Liam Cohen, tight end position, he doesn't really use it like that. I think if Liam Cohen had Tyler Warren on his football team, he would use the tight end position like that. I don't think Liam Cohen is so dogmatic in saying, tight ends are just not for me, that he wouldn't use a guy like that to the best of their ability. And I just think all you have to do is look back to when you had injuries at the wide receiver position last year in Tampa and what he was able to do with Cade Otton, right? Liam Cohen adjusts to his situation. If Brian Thomas Jr. and Tyler Warren are his best 2 receiving options, his best 2 options on offense, guess what? He's going to get Tyler Warren the football, right? Now, I don't know if that's the direction they're going to go, but I still think it would be a good option. Like if that's the direction the Jaguars are leaning, I think that they will get the most out of a Tyler Warren in Jacksonville. Big fan of his game. And then I know you talk about Brenton Strange. Look, both of these guys can be involved in the same offense. I absolutely think so. Now, if you draft a tight end at 5 overall, Brenton Strange is obviously taking a back seat, right? He's no longer the guy that he is right now. Like right now, Brenton Strange is tight end 1. He would clearly become tight end 2 in that situation. After that, I think that Will Campbell would definitely work out for the Jaguars because you probably plug him in at guard to start his career, and that's where I project him best. And then as he gets more adjusted to the NFL, because he's still a young guy as well, maybe he can play left tackle for you long term if you're not sold on Walker Little. Maybe if Walker Little struggles or Anton Harrison struggles, I mean, he can get that out there at tackle earlier. But he gives you a lot of versatility. I think that he could probably beat out Ezra Cleveland from the jump at left guard. And you're looking at a interior offensive line of Hainsey, McCary, and Campbell compared to what you had last year. I think that is a pretty big upgrade. I do. And again, the potential for Campbell to play left tackle or right tackle if need be. He is 7th on my board. 7th on my board. And for me, I know people like Armand Membou more than Will Campbell. I don't personally. I don't know that Armand Membou would be as good in terms of versatility, like kicking inside. And if you're just talking about him playing tackle, I don't think he's beating out Anton Harrison or Walker Little, honestly. So that's kind of where I view it. I think Will Campbell's a better overall football player. More balanced. I like Armand Membou a lot, though. He is... Where is he on my board? He's in the teens somewhere. Yeah, I have him in the teens. And he had a great year. He absolutely did. I still think there's some technical refinement. I still think that there's some clunkiness with the feet. I just think Campbell's a better football player, especially if you're talking about playing guard. After that, I would be looking at Malachi Starks and Will Johnson, both of whom are still in my top 10. Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan at 8. Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia at 9. I think both of these players have been victims of just the draft world getting a little tired of them. You know, the draft prospect fatigue is real. And neither of them had the best seasons of their career last year. You know, Will Johnson was dealing with injury. Malachi Starks was being moved all over the place, playing a lot in the nickel. I think he projects best purely as a free safety. I think that Will Johnson, when healthy, for the most part, his tape has been undeniably great. His ability to process information in front of him, to understand how offenses are trying to attack their defensive scheme, has led to so many big-time interceptions and pass breakups for Will Johnson over the course of his career. He does have the size. I think he has the explosiveness as well. He jumped 37 inches. We didn't get a 40 time from him. I think both of these guys are going to be studs at the next level. And so you look at the Jaguars secondary. I think Malachi Starks at safety is a bigger need than Will Johnson at corner. If you believe in Jarian Jones, and it seems like the Jaguars do believe on Jarian Jones based on everything we've been hearing come out of Jacksonville, out of that building so far. Jarian Jones been on a little bit of a media tour talking about it a little bit. And the Jaguars brass, they expressed to him and to the media that they had confidence in Jarian Jones and Jordan Lewis and their ability to be versatile, play inside, play outside. If that's the truth, yeah. Those are the guys. I think those are the options. And I think some of those options would be available in a trade down scenario too. I think in a trade down, you'd be looking at some of the guys we just talked about. I think you'd be looking at Derek Harmon. I think you'd be looking at Emeka Ibuka, Luther Burden. Obviously depends on how far you trade down. Maybe Matthew Golden. I love Darius Alexander mid round 1. I don't know if they would. You know, Colston Loveland, again, another tight end, and people are not trying to connect the Jaguars to tight ends, but it's certainly possible. Kenneth Grant would surprise me a little bit. Walter Nolan, I think they would love his skill set. My question is, would they love the person? I don't know. You've heard some mixed reports about him. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Would love to know what y'all think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Just kind of give like a comprehensive look at where the Jaguars could go and what these players could potentially offer for the team. Again, let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if y'all enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.